You made it to level 2, deeper questions leading to deeper answers. I'm Tomas Garza, and I'm here to help you decide to transform. I'll be setting the pace for the process to support your unfolding. Learn and commit to a practice that brings simplicity and then awareness of what is ready to be released. Join me now and allow the experience of a deeper sense of love. Welcome to Decide to Transform and this very special co-hosted edition of the show. Joining me, as she often does, is my co-host and very good friend, business partner, Lisa Berry. And Lisa and I are excited for this show because joining us from Hamilton, Ontario today is Jessica Compton. We're excited about this show. Jessica is an experienced child and youth worker and is currently an elementary school educational assistant. Now, Jessica is also the founder and director of Tree of Stars, promoting mental health awareness and addiction recovery by telling our stories through music, art, and resources since 2017. Jessica is out to share a message of hope and is on a podcast tour herself. So we're delighted that Jessica has joined us here today. Jessica, welcome to Decide to Transform.
Thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here, and just here keeping it real. So thank you so much again for having me.
It's my pleasure. And the listeners, before we launch in with some of the questions here, I had the pleasure of being on Jessica's IG Live on Instagram, Tree of Stars on tour. And that was just a couple of days ago, and really, really a wonderful experience. So we're happy to have you here and go into some depth because you've got a lot to share. So we're excited.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot. Try to narrow it down as possible and not take up too much of your time, but
we've got time. That's all we've got. We've got lots of time. So take your time. Yeah.
And Jessica, what I absolutely loved when we first were introduced, and I was like reading about you, and I was just, there was so much artistic around like the arts and the music. And I thought, wow, she's using that to give the message of hope to, and I immediately was like, well, okay, did you try to give this message of hope before in a different way, a different, venue to like have people access it or be inspired? Or was it right away you went, this is it, we need art and music to help get this message of hope out there?
So I've spent like years of therapy, but art therapy definitely was something that I think I kind of struggled with because of the rules around it. But when I dipped into photography, I was in high school and then more embraced it in the last 4 years, just wanting to believe in myself and go further with it. And then with the music, my dad was a DJ, so I was always surrounded by music. And when I moved to Hamilton from North Bay, I was always, reaching out to different musicians to go support their gigs. And then I eventually found myself selling their merch and helping them run their photo or their albums. And then, I created a couple albums myself. So it just kind of organically is there. And when you feel it and you want it, and just start creating and share that.
So I love that because you were able to see firsthand. Yeah, you were right in there, like saying, oh, wow, when people really like this or they like this T-shirt. And it is a message, even if you think about what all of us chose to wear today for a comfort reason, or our eyes are drawn to a certain color, or, all those things. And so it is a message that we're putting out there, but we're also helping others to hear that message as well. It's powerful.
Yeah, and I think like even with the creative side, I took one of my photos and I made it my organization logo. So and it's all over on our merchandise. But yeah, when you take a photo to a logo, that's it carries with you. It's like right beside me all the time.
Creative art expression. And you said art therapy. So because now I got art therapy expression. What was it in your life that you needed, that you felt like, I need to have therapy, I need change, I need help, what was it that was so deep for you?
I think like when I was younger, going through, there was a stage for 2 years where I was mute. I wasn't talking to anybody because of the abuse I went through. But So the expression of drawing pictures of how I felt when I was younger, and then just as I got older, the art was still there, but not as much. I think I was more tapped into music, and even just 4 years ago when I quit smoking, I was like, I'm going to take my smoking money and pick up a guitar, and so I've been playing self-taught guitar for the last 4 years, in exchange that I won't smoke.
Oh, right. I love that. All right. And how's the self-taught guitar progressing?
It's good. It's good. I know
Good.
12 notes. I mean, I'm nothing like Justin Bieber or Ed Sheeran, but shout out to them that there's no mistake to music.
Yeah, that's true. There's not. Yes. Well, and Jessica, you have mentioned before that art and the creative arts and photography not only was therapeutic for you, but also almost kind of life saving. Yeah. Would you say some more about that if you don't mind?
Yeah, so about 4 years ago, I was experiencing some suicide ideation, and I was on the Hamilton Mountain Brow, and just going through a really rough period. And life is a Ferris wheel, so it's again, going through those ups and downs. And while I was going through the downs, I was just taking a walk, and I took a picture of this tree, and I didn't even realize it that there was a star inside this tree. And for some odd reason, it kind of went through my body as an awakening. And I wanted to share my story with other people as a message of hope. I could have made that decision, to either, die by suicide or be a survivor. And so here I am today. And again, the photo that I took of the tree and the star, maybe it was a life saving, but I want to share that with other people and just build those resources through that photo.
Okay. Yeah, and that's it's a compelling photo, and the listeners, it's a compelling image that you'll want to check out when we talk about how you can reach Jessica and find out more about Tree of Stars. It's a very compelling image, and you were looking through a tree then, and there was a star in the sky in the middle of the tree. Is that right?
So there was this like blue sky, and it was legit like blue, and this tree that I was standing in front of, and I kind of just took the picture, and I was like, wow, this sky is like so beautiful tonight. And I just kind of sat there reminiscing. And then when I went home and I looked at the photo, the star was actually in the tree. So it was like this
Mm.
metal tree. And the way, I mean, if anybody gets a chance to visit, I don't even know who put the star up there, but it was almost like impossible for me to even like think, how did that star get up there?
Okay.
Um,
So
I think it's so amazing that you're in such a state, like to to find yourself in a state of contemplating suicide, of leaving this, ending it all, but yet still admiring the tree enough to take a picture of it. That's it. So that was there still, do you believe that even though when somebody is so low and they think, oh gosh, I just want to leave, do you help them to hang on to whatever they can find, whether it's admiring a blue sky or a tree? Just start there.
yeah, I mean, there's got to be one thing in everybody's life that they've got to hold on to, and I'm not talking about materialistic things. Even if it's somebody not having a roof over their head or not knowing where their next meal's coming from. I think, as Louise Hayes, one of her books, or Jay Shetty, just talking about digging deep inside you, and taking that time for yourself to dig deep inside and awake yourself in some way, and not saying that everybody has to do that, but maybe there's moments of like hitting rock bottom. But for me, I think that it was that constant hitting rock bottom, and then that constant thought. But again, that's where the carrying around my camera, or even just sitting on my guitar and playing for some most of the time I think I'm going to play for 15 minutes and it ends up being 4 hours. So just digging deep inside you, what are you blessed with? If it's we see people without arms and legs and they're still swimming. So, just digging inside us, what we really believe in, what we want in life, and struggle together.
Yeah, and this is it's an integral part of your message. You're here to deliver a message of hope. Now, with Tree of Stars, when you took the photo of the star in the tree, how did things progress from there?
Yeah, I mean, I was, I have these journals and I write down different ideas and I journal and I also write some poetry, songwriting. And I think there was just this point where I kept writing about all this pain and hurt. And I wanted to reach out to artistic creatives, in many different ways to send a message that we can, save ourselves together. So I created kind of like a journal music workshop where people could visit me in cafes and I sat there for a month by myself and then 4 years later now there's like 50 people sitting in the cafe with me. So and these are people that are willing to, sit and listen, but there's also moments where it's like, you see the same person for 6 months and then they finally raise their hand and say, I want to share. And then when they start sharing, they just start believing. And that just creates community right there.
Yeah, that's very powerful. That's a powerful image. And on Instagram, your Tree of Stars on tour. So tell us a little bit about this tour. There's a touring component that I think we're both really interested in here.
So I think I define the word tour kind of blends in with my ADHD and just always wanting to be all over the place and move around and share and connect. So I utilize different platforms to do different things. So the on tour is yes, being on different podcasts and different people being on my Instagram lives and just being all over the place. And I really am all over the place. So I've got in my vehicle, I got my hashtag on the back of my Jeep so people can literally follow me, while I'm picking up groceries for other people in the community, anything that I'm doing volunteer. So I'm always on tour.
I love that. What's interesting when you mentioned the connection there about, ADHD or ADD. And I recently learned this. Now it could be, I've heard it, so I've learned it, but it may resonate with others that sometimes we think that it's our minds that are all over the place. But yet, if we look at it a little differently, to say that our minds are actually so on call for attention. Your attention's being called everywhere. It's not that you have lack of attention, it's that you have too much, like so much attention. And my question around that, if that was to be true and you felt that resonant to that, do you think that when one goes through abuse, addiction, and we'll mention all the other A letters that you go through, your A blog, that you're on call for protection or on call to help somebody or on call for safety? Do you think that where does that stem from? Anything for you?
So yeah, when I was back in grade two, the system, and I talk about the system as CAS, psychiatrists, and going through the different layers of trauma. I was diagnosed when I was in grade two with ADHD, and being in a classroom, even in grade 6 or 7, even if you were the person sitting beside me, making noise with your pencil, I just looked at you and I would say like, you are so annoying. But it wasn't even that. I had like ear sensitivity, so when they realized, they started putting me in a room by myself to do my tests, I was acing it and I was doing a lot better. So even in college when I had someone scribe for me, or if I'm sending something, my mind's going way faster than so even as I'm speaking to you, I'm thinking about 20 other thoughts. So it is practice to compress, but it's also there's remedies that I have to practice, where if I get up in the morning, I don't turn my phone on right away. I make sure I journal first, get my thoughts. I actually carry around like a notebook that I just put down different ideas. So it kind of helps me. I have those those toolkits to just help me in moments of that where I feel like, oh my gosh, I have 30 different thoughts going on. Then I definitely need to get that notebook out, and not every idea is a good one. So
There you go. But and just to elaborate on the grade two thing, so when you were tested in grade two for that, what were you going through? Some of the harder times that has your challenges and of whichever one you can share with us, which ones have already begun when you were in grade two?
absolutely. So there was it started with abandonment. Not sure where my parents were, not sure where I was living, different foster homes, and then being abducted. I just started different behaviors. And even to this day, I go back to therapy, and they, at one point thought that it was a misdiagnosed, not ADHD. They thought it was post-traumatic stress. And so I think that when we're looking at, being diagnosed in grade two, is just reevaluating that as we get older and making sure that we're intact and in check-in with any sort of assessments as we get older. Because if you don't check anything out, then, yeah, things start to happen if you don't take care of that.
Yeah, yeah, and this is something you've mentioned several things that for you have been lifelong. And Lisa, you mentioned just a moment ago the A blog. So, Jessica, what is the A blog? Tell us what that's all about.
Yeah, so when I first started sharing my story, I went onto WordPress and I just thought I would put together, a little glimpse of my story to the best of my abilities and keep it short, simple. So yeah, it's the A blog. Everything I've been through starts with the letter A, and I call it abandoned, abducted, abused, addict, ADHD, and arrested 4 times. So yeah, that just kind of simplifies, what I've been through. And then obviously would if you had 5 days, I'd tell you all about it in detail. But so and then there's also the experience of, I always add the surviving of suicide, and then also experiencing many, many levels of homelessness.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, and again, like you just said, this could be quite a lengthy story. But is there one incident in all of this experience that was deeply, deeply transformational for you? If there is one that stands out, which one was that?
It would have to be between the being abducted and being arrested. I think with being abducted, it's still every Thanksgiving is a trigger to me, which I always take a trigger as a
Mm.
blessing and trying to deal with that. So even when people post like trigger warning, I take triggers as a strength and a forgiveness. But going to the being arrested, that is one that really, really is empowering for me, because every time I got arrested, they would incarcerate me. So I had to do my time, and my last incarceration was when I was 19. And going in at 110 pounds, coming out at 130, and being super healthy, and trying to transform, as you were to say, it really, really awakened me each time, but not enough to, you know, um, succeed at that time, or just to say goodbye to, every single drug and not want to numb the pain. So I wasn't even, I just have to give a thanks to the correctional system for sending me away for the help that I needed.
And that's the big one, is to recognize when someone does need help. And that's an entire, I mean, we're not just talking about one person extending. This is, the whole correction services or support. And did you do things on purpose then to get, like, were you starting to think, I'm not doing so well. I need to have a roof over my head and a meal, and then do something that perhaps would get you arrested to put you back there?
I would have to say that, every time I got arrested, I was on some sort of drug or intoxicated in some way. So, not on purpose, but I went to the same institute, and I was also transferred to a different institute. So my charges, just to share, I stole the car, I assaulted a police officer, I escaped custody, and I blew up a couple things. So with playing with fire, just being on drugs, hanging out with the wrong people. But again, I look at it as a blessing. Like I could have been dead. I'm still here today. I'm alive, but I did really enjoy the care of the workers that were there, or even having our own cook, looking at a plate going, wow, I have veggies and, grilled chicken and asparagus, like haven't even heard of that stuff. So like, I think just, having those, not on purpose, but just being blessed for that point where I was being cared for.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's really that's really wonderful that you have been able to have that perspective. And speaking of a perspective shift that you mentioned a minute ago, is that your triggers are forgiveness opportunities. Tell us about the process to go from triggers as, well, conventional triggers to forgiveness opportunities.
Yeah, so I look at, I mean, there's many, many moments where I'm triggered, but there's more specific ones than others. But I had a family member that sexually assaulted me, and when he had passed away, for me, um, I forgave him before he had passed away, but even when he passed, I really forgave him. But I almost did affirmations. I rolled down my window and it was almost like I was free. Not that I ever wanted him to die, but it was the thought that I would have to go to a family gathering and see him. And I think from that piece, I have tattoos on my arms. One says forgiven and the other one says strength. And I carry that with me every day. So if anybody's ever hurt me in any way, or if I've hurt anybody else, and I didn't even touch into the bullying aspect and individuals that I've bullied, I still to this day apologize to the people that I've done wrong to, and stealing from my own family, or harassing my grandmother for money when I was doing drugs. So I think yes, it's all a trigger, but grab your strength out of that in some way. And for me, it was I have to forgive myself to move forward, and I also have to forgive other people.
In that forgiveness piece, because I know that you do so much for the community now, but I would love for you to share just how much you do and what those roles are. Do you find that you yourself personally do serve to still gain forgiveness from yourself, or is your serving others coming from a different place?
Yeah, so I would have to agree with kind of both, because my empathy and my sympathy and my compassion to see people on the streets, and I call it a broken system, because especially now with the pandemic and all the tent cities and all the people that are suffering from hunger, my hashtag is making a difference, is changing the world. And I do think that my purpose and my passion is to serve others. And apparently in science, we live longer if we serve the community. So I'm going to live till I'm 130. So I think that there's many aspects of me giving back, and I always say where I can and when I can. So my self-care comes first, and in my scheduling, if and when I can help out, then I'll be there. I'm also just building other volunteers to kind of hop on the train with me, so that we can all be an umbrella.
Yeah. Well, and you've mentioned a couple of things about your self-care, which you prioritize. You mentioned not turning your phone on first thing in the morning and making sure that you journaled and carry your idea journal with you. What else does your self-care involve? Because we know that you're quite busy and you're working a lot.
Yeah, so at work I have a jug of 4 liters of a bottle, and it's water, and I fill it up, and throughout the day, I make sure that I take that 4 liters, and if I reach to 3 liters, then so be it. We're not perfect. I always have chapstick on me, because I know that just with different weather temperatures, I just like my chapstick, small little things like that. Also, I have a stepper, which is right in front of my bed. So it's the first thing I kind of look at. And I'm not perfect when it comes to, being super mindful what I put into my mouth. But just recently I've got a sponsor for, meal kits, and they are all vegan free, plant-based. So there's still room for self-care and reminders and building goals. But I think that definitely having movement once a day, hugging a tree, hugging a tree because of just the energy it gives me. I don't know if you guys have ever hugged a tree, but that's a part of my self-care.
Yes, definitely. Many trees.
Yes. Tomas has to be careful because his trees are more cactus-like in Arizona, and he's got to watch out.
Right.
But virtual, earlier you had said just about being the term and the phrase came out, to be cared for, and now we're talking about self-care. And I do believe myself, that being cared for starts with ourselves, and being cared for was something that you didn't have. You mentioned about being abandoned, first. And then, but you also, I was like, oh, wait a second. Her father was a DJ. So wait a second, I have to back up. Can you fill in some holes on that story for us? And about the being cared for, how I feel like you fell in love with it. And that's why you want to help. You want to care for so many others.
Yeah, so my mom was a drinker, still is to this day, and I have my limits and boundaries set with her. But so my sister and I were found under a bed. My dad had cheated on my mom, so he had left. They divorced. With my mom being, into partying a lot, she went out one night, and there was a party at her place, and we crawled underneath the bed, and we just stayed there. And the police came in and found us, put us in foster care. we moved up to North Bay, Ontario, where my dad had remarried, a lady that was Indigenous, and so that's where I grew up. And honestly, where I lived with them, my dad was also an electrician during the week, and he was in different cities and areas. Sometimes he wouldn't be home for 2 weeks, and then a DJ on the weekend. So he was rarely around. But I had a lot of freedom, as a 7-year-old, to go to a variety store. I was way out in the country, and I was allowed to take my bike into the city, driving it on the highway, or just a lot of freedom. I used to hop trains and just jump off cliffs into the water. And like, I was just so young, but I didn't have family, and when I started these behaviors, when I was being, abused in different ways in different places, even when I went to foster care, the foster dad, sexually assaulted me. If it wasn't like a neighbor or a babysitter, there was always something going on. So I was pretty much shut down as a human, and I just wanted to be numbed. And I think that goes into my addiction, is once I did try the drugs, I'm like, I want more, because this is the best feeling ever. And so yeah, I don't think I was, even when I was homeless, I was breaking into my family places. I was, like I said, I was harassing my grandmother for money. My supports melted. So being cared for, but also hitting rock bottom, it's called tough love. They all had to reject, my phone calls and me like answering their door, because I was a giant mess, right?
Wow. Yeah. And they were, that is a tough one. And actually tough love versus what you're doing is, so you're not, thank goodness you're not in the position now where you have to offer tough love. You can show up and support. What are some of the things that you are doing in the community to offer the support and love and cared for?
Yeah, so on Saturdays, I volunteer at a food place where I go and pick up 15 bags of produce, and I deliver that to individuals in the community that are in need, especially even right now with musicians, they're used to gigging. So I just drop the groceries off to different doorsteps that I know that people need. And then I go live on TikTok Monday to Friday for 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening, just to do a quick chat check-in. I used to do a lot of like workshops with painting and junk journaling. Just recently, I've launched a 6-week journal workshop, which is on my page, where you can find a Zoom, and also in each Zoom, there's going to be a different musician every week joining us. And then just promoting musicians and artists and different resources on Instagram since March of 2020. And I think that, back then when I used to have hugging events for 12 hours, with the pandemic, I can't do things like that. So even if it's, there's a elderly lady that I stop by once a week, and I bring her a bag of groceries, but I also bring her a coffee, and I'll sit with her for a half an hour social distance, because there's words that she said, like, where I don't want to be here anymore because I'm too lonely. And I'm like, don't worry, I'm right here. And she, even to this day, even though we're 5 minutes away, she still writes me letters in the mail. So she's 87, and that's those, making that little bit of difference helps everybody, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it does. I love the old-fashioned letters. That's awesome. I love that. I remember those. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jessica, if people were to want to find out more about Tree of Stars or about the work that you do, how can these folks reach out to you?
Yeah, anywhere on Facebook, Tria Stars, on Instagram, Tria Stars on Tour, on WordPress, it's Tria Stars, and then YouTube, Tria Stars. You can see my past events, and plus I do public speaking. Everything I do is for free. And then I also, on Instagram, I pay the musicians for their gigs if they play 3 songs and then and do the interview. And then, yeah, I just, with the groceries and stuff like that, you can follow Small Scale Farms. Yeah, I'm kind of all over the place there.
All right, wonderful. And how can people access the A blog as well if they're interested?
Yeah, so you can go to Tria Stars on WordPress, and if you Google that, it will come right up on WordPress.
Okay, beautiful. I love it. All right, and Tree of Stars, and also on Instagram, where you go live. That was fun, by the way.
Yes, thanks for joining us over there. That was fun.
Absolutely, it was. Yes.
And I just love that you do so much with food because there's so much, and I don't want to push food as a comfort food, but it's a way of somebody, if like what you had mentioned at the beginning, being mute for 2 years and then being able to express yourself, sometimes offering food or somebody receiving food and or sharing that coffee or that meal together, that is comfort, that is being cared for. And it's a way of just, yeah, enjoying with somebody else something. So I just love that you do food.
Yeah, and I think the food that I'm connected with, it's also fresh produce, and it's even with the meal kits, it's plant-based. So, it helps our mental health of not putting so much sugar and salt into our bodies.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it really does. Right. Sugar is, well, it's not so great.
We're
So
all sweet enough.
Yeah.
oh, just on the mental health, where is it that you find you're supporting that? Where do you still struggle with with any mental health issues, and what are you doing for your self care on mental health, and then extending that into the community?
Yeah, I think just me staying real and raw, sharing my story. I also do check-ins with my own therapist and my own doctor just to make sure that, so I do take sleeping medication. So just making sure that I'm feeling okay with the medication, being mindful, even just turning my phone off. I feel like just with the pandemic, I've spent a lot of time on my phone, but it's a great piece of connection. But one thing that I do is when I do visit people, if it's social distancing or whatnot, I make sure that my phone is out of my face so that I can actually give those people my full attention. With delivering food on Saturdays, it's only supposed to take me 3 hours, but it takes me 7 hours because of all the connection and chatting, right? So
I love that. Oh, and I have to highlight this because it's one of my favorite things is that I know one other thing that you have that's super, super duper self-love and care and nurturing. You have puppy dogs and that you get to spend time with animals. And sometimes when we're struggling and we're not feeling cared for by caring for an animal or allowing them to just uplift us, that's really helpful. Is that one of your go-tos?
absolutely. I've been super, super honored to have the partner that I do have. And she has a puppy and it's now our puppy. I've gained the rights, but I brought him kayaking, swimming, and he's a year old tomorrow. So he's just a bundle of joy. And yeah, definitely pet therapy is one of my self-care practices.
Yes. Well, happy birthday to him for tomorrow.
I love that. Yeah. And it's so fun that you've mentioned so many different ways that we can connect. And what strikes me, a common thread about all of them is they're really very easy and simple to do, but they make such a tremendous difference in people's lives. And really, there's a lot there.
Yeah, and I think we can all make a list of self-care remedies, but it's also, I think sometimes it's too overwhelming. So not to
Mhm.
to say you have to do this, this, this. One of the things that I've done is making up a self-care calendar to say, okay, you know what, even if I'm journaling for 5 minutes and then I'm reading for 10 minutes, it's not like I have to read for 3 hours a day. I just think like little bits of little things that that help.
Mhm. Yeah, there's always so much that helps. And Jessica, as we wind down here, I've learned a great deal, and I know the listeners have learned a great deal about all of these seemingly small things and the tremendous impact that they can make in all of our lives. What would you like to leave our listeners with today?
Be kind to yourself, self-compassion, feel what you feel. A lot of people say it's okay not to be okay. And I agree with that. But it's also the fact that, when we're feeling down and we're feeling down for a long time is reach out because there are resources out there. And if somebody needs those resources globally, just give me a shout, send me a DM. I'm here for you. And people also do say that there's light at the end of the tunnel. There is. I'm right here.
Right. I
Mm.
love this. And this is Tree of Stars on Instagram to reach Jessica and including sending a DM. If you need help, reach out most definitely because it is available to you. Wonderful. Jessica, this has been so much fun. And thank you so much for joining us as our guest here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been such an honor and such a pleasure. I know everybody's valuable time. So even to the listeners, thank you. And to Lisa for agreeing to do this. And, as myself, I reached out to you guys. So it just proves that reaching out does work.
It does work. We're grateful that you reached out to us, and we're happy to have this show today as well. So it's very, very fun, and reaching out most definitely does work.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. This has been Decide to Transform with my co-host Lisa Berry, and this has been Jessica Compton. Again, Tree of Stars on Instagram, Tree of Stars on tour. Reach out to Jessica, and thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in here today. This has been fun. We'll see you next time.